On a cold, misty night, a young woman named Clara drove through the countryside, heading to her grandmother's old farmhouse. The road was narrow and lined with twisted trees that loomed over her like skeletal hands. She had taken this route many times before, but something felt different tonight. An unsettling silence enveloped the air. As she approached a fork in the road, her headlights flickered, momentarily illuminating a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman in a tattered white dress, her hair hanging over her face, obscuring her features. Clara felt a chill crawl up her spine, but dismissed it as a trick of the light. She pressed on, taking the left path, which she knew led to her grandmother's house. Minutes later, her car sputtered and died. The headlights went out, plunging her into darkness. Clara's heart raced as she stepped out into the fog, calling for help. But the only response was the rustling of leaves and the distant howl of the wind. She pulled out her phone, but there was no signal. Panic began to set in as she noticed the woman from the fork was now standing closer, her head tilted to one side, as if studying Clara. The woman raised a finger, pointing down the road, and without thinking, Clara started walking toward her, compelled by a mixture of fear and curiosity. With each step, the air grew colder. Clara could hear whispers carried by the wind, echoing names she couldn't quite make out. Suddenly, the woman began to move, gliding just ahead of Clara, leading her deeper into the woods. The fog thickened, and the trees seemed to close in around her. Just as Clara began to feel a sense of dread, she stumbled into a small clearing illuminated by the moon. In the center stood a dilapidated old well, overgrown with vines. The woman was now standing beside it, her hair falling away from her face, revealing sunken eyes filled with sorrow. "Help me," she whispered, her voice like brittle leaves crunching underfoot. Clara felt an urge to reach out, but she hesitated. "I can't leave. Not until someone finds me," the woman continued, her voice growing more desperate. Realizing this was no ordinary encounter, Clara backed away slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. As she turned to flee, she heard the woman's anguished cry, "You must not leave me!" Clara ran back to her car, fumbling for the keys in her pocket. She could feel the air thickening, pressing against her as she drove away, the woman's wails echoing in her ears. She didn't stop until she reached the nearest town, heart racing and hands trembling. Years later, Clara would often tell the story to her friends, warning them about the lonely roads and the spirits that wander at night. But late at night, when the wind howled just right, she would hear a familiar whisper on the breeze, soft yet urgent, "Help me." And she would shiver, knowing that the woman in white was still waiting, still searching for someone to hear her plea.